But yeah, I thought twice when I was like, "Well, this is a Dr. Dixon. I wonder what he's going to be thinking when I show up with cigars and scotch."
I have 87 and a half years of life, which normally generates a substantial amount of wisdom.
But yeah, very excited when Kane came up to me at our friend's wedding. Was like, "You gotta just talk to my grandpa."
Hey, when great-grandpa takes a dirt nap,
That too.
Kane can get it out. He says, "You remember great-grandpa Gigi?" Not so much. So it took me a long time to really realize that all I had to do, particularly as a surgeon, all I had to do was say, okay, how can I be of service today? If there was just one thing that you guys took away from that, that's it. Be of service. And everything else will fall in place. All right, get your ass out of here.
Yeah, oh my God.
His dad and my son-in-law, Chris, love taking pot shots at me. So this or that. They just love taking pot shots. I'm this, or I'm a weenie, or this or that. And I just look at him, I said, so you're talking to the ex-special forces trooper, private pilot, scuba certified underwater recovery, who, by the way, has an MD and an MBA.
Yeah.
Don't worry, I'm getting them back.
So what are your interests? There's in terms of what I can contribute, I have 87 and a half years of life, which normally generates a substantial amount of wisdom from life experience. I have an somewhat interesting background. I told you what my background was.
Yes, I read that email a couple times, trying to make sure I can wrap my head around it. And like I said, a lot of years of experience and wisdom, and that's kind of what I'm looking for. Is I have buddies that are doing the same thing I'm at, and at the same level in life that we're at, but they have different experiences, right? So they're making different growth steps in their lives. Some of them have multiple kids. Some of them are married. Some of them aren't. So yeah, very excited when Kane came up to me at our friend's wedding. Was like, "We gotta just talk to my grandpa. He really wants to show something to your great-grandkids."
Yeah.
Which is a really cool thing with technology to do that.
Hey, when great-grandpa takes a dirt nap,
That too.
Kane can get it out. He says, "You remember great-grandpa Gigi?" Not so much. There he is.
But all your "I told you so's" too of what Kane might morph as time goes on. You know, how it gets translated a little bit differently. Hey, yeah, I listen to what my grandpa said all the time, and now you have to listen to it.
Right.
That's how it gets passed down. That's so I mean, I'm going to ask a little bit about your life, your email that you sent, just kind of what kind of decisions you had to overcome and make throughout that journey, which was, I thought, a very interesting journey. Just any military family. I know my oldest uncle, a military family, married a military wife, very similar to you guys. 3 kids that are all in the military right now, different branches. They had to move around so much, and
Oh yeah.
this is just a very cool experience because you're living in multiple different places. You're trying to adjust to different community styles, and you're all on base.
And by the way, whenever you move, there's always somebody there that you know.
That's also pretty cool.
Yeah, well, it's almost invariably the case. Well, in terms of my life, my dad, with his mother and family, came out of the hills of West Virginia during the Great Depression. They couldn't even get food. They couldn't get work. And they migrated to New Jersey. Okay. A strange thing, my dad had a 7th grade education, and that education took place in a 1-room class.
Huh.
Yeah, because that's all it had. And truly, it was the hills of West Virginia. Wow. So my dad worked in a factory, you know, as he grew up a bit. And my mom was an extraordinarily bright young woman who desperately wanted to get away from her family. Reason being, her mom had died in the great pandemic of 1970. And so she was essentially orphaned. And my grandfather's wife died and was cousins. And so they ended up married. Anyway, going forward, the second wife of my grandpa, the one they married for self-help during this flu pandemic, had a little girl. And over the years, she was shown a lot of favoritism because, after all, it was her mother's girl, and they had one son together. So my mom kind of felt like the left-out child and wanted out. She skipped a couple of grades in high school. She was so smart. Went to secretarial school, got a job in this factory, met my dad. And I think the first offer to get her out of the house would have been accepted. So you know, my early family was financially impoverished. We were blue collar. Dad was a factory worker. Mom didn't work because back then, I mean, she could do secretarial work.
Mhm.
But when I came along, that took her out of the working marketplace.
So sorry, but your mom got a job at the same factory or business that your dad was at, and that's how they met?
That's what I meant.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And like I said, he might have been the first one to propose, but I'm sure she was taking what she could get at that time. Not to say they didn't have, and they did, a successful, very long marriage, but she was ready to just get out of the house, get away from her stepmom and my grandfather. So I started out in a blue collar family, and I always knew that while we didn't have a lot of money, we were really well off because of the love my mom and dad had for each other, and the love they showed my brother and my sister. I mean, it was, in that regard, it was a wonderful family. But I lived on the outskirts of a very well-to-do town, a commuter town. Everybody in that town got on the Jersey Central and commuted into New York to work.
Okay.
So with that kind of a town, and I lived on the outskirts of it, which was what we could barely afford. The high school was fantastic. It was one of the highest rated ones in the whole city. It was the highest rated one in Jersey. So I went to school, and again, when you're a kid, you don't know what your socioeconomic status is. You're just somebody. I knew my clothes were not quite up to it. They were like last year's top line, but also as a kid, right there. And when everybody started saying, it's time to go to college, I said, oh, okay, where's everybody going? So I applied to Ivy League schools. I would not apply to an Ivy League school. Everybody did.
Yeah.
So I got accepted at several of them, and I ended up going to Columbia College in New York City. With the disgrace that Columbia has been with the anti-Semitism and all that stuff that happened, I'm almost hesitant to admit that I'm a Columbia grad.
Different times back then.
Oh, it was
different university.
That university would not know this university. Yeah.
I see that in a lot of facts. And that's another reason why I was excited to come here and because to have two different generations of the same family, right? So you have the same values, you could say, and you have two different generations of veterans now, and multiple generations of veterans. I like what you said about not realizing how, like, what your economic or socio status was with your family. That's something that I realized kind of early too, being the oldest of four, is that, we were in Inverness, always here in Inverness, and the love between my mother and dad and the love that they had for us kids to support it, that's invaluable. You can't measure that in economic wealth. So
worth a lot more than cash.
Oh, and so we were blind to it just because that's what they wanted us to be, and we lived a great life. And looking back on it now, you just go, you have a lot of people, I guess, going, how did they do it? And it's just, that's what you can go back to, is say, love your wife and then love your kids. Yeah. And then if you have, make room for God. God starts that start off. So getting married and going through that with the Catholic churches where we got married in, it really lays out a beautiful setup for marriage and love and raising a family. So that's, like I said, another reason to where that's what we're all trying to figure out. And yes, you didn't have a podcast back when they did listen to or talk to do it, but they've done, when I say they, just the system has done a good job of separating us to where, you feel a little bit on your own sometimes. That's a hard thing to do, where there's God, there's friends, sometimes there's family when you need them. So a lot of it is just trying to help out those who might need a little bit of help, and also just helping myself out. I'm an overthinker by trade, and it really helps just make sure, you confirm things, you deny things, you learn something new, and it's a very, very, life has been done billions of ways over hundreds of years, thousands of years. And it's been fun to decipher that. And that's why I'm starting to read again and do things like that.
Well, I'm glad enjoying it, and I heartily recommend continuing to expand the knowledge base.
So,
Yeah.
what did you have any other? Do you have any other opportunities or line of sights besides Columbia? Were there other colleges that you were close to
Yeah.
going to, or other maybe where you were thinking about not going to college?
Well, I got accepted at Cornell, Yale,
Okay.
Princeton.
Okay.
So I had a lot of choices. But the thing with Columbia was we lived about not even an hour bus ride to New York City.
Okay.
So I thought, okay, that's home.
Mm-hmm.
And I also had a job that someone lined up for me when I went to college. I was going to be working in a factory that was about a 30-minute drive from, not even 25 minutes drive from my home.
Okay.
So I said, okay, I can stay local and I can get an education. So that was the reason for choosing Columbia. Plus, they offered me a full scholarship and a meal job, which involved working 2 hours a day in the cafeteria. Initially, scraping dishes, and my last year, the head waiter. So
And that paid for your food.
that paid for all my food.
That's awesome. That's good.
Yeah. But my dad, we just didn't, no matter how he tried, there wasn't going to be enough money. Even after they pay all your tuition, you still had some books you had to buy. You know what that's like. And then, even though I got a meal plan and all that, there were other expenses.
Mm-hmm.
New set of clothes, for the hick, something that looked decent on the campus. Back then, it was a coat and ties. Everybody with the class in coat and ties. Nobody looked shabby.
No pajamas. No, none of that. None of that.
Now there was an unspoken discipline regarding how you looked. Nobody was wearing a beard at the time, so you're all clean shaven, and a t-shirt, a sweatshirt, none of that ever happened. It was a tie and a jacket. So, yeah, and Columbia, I mean, it was the hardest school I've ever been to. I must say, it really was the biggest challenge ever. But it was a school at that time that taught you how to think. I had no idea what the political leanings were of my professors. None at all. It was never brought up. Politics didn't enter them. They didn't tell us why we ought to think this, why we ought to think that. They exposed us to the great ideas from millennia forward, and then they quizzed us. What do you understand about this? What does it mean for you? How does it fit into life in America? Made us think, basically. So hats off to Columbia College. They took a poor blue-collar kid and made me who I am today. Without them, so when I was thinking about being a lawyer, and I thought about that, and I thought, well, I'd had an incident in my childhood where I helped someone with a broken leg, and I kind of felt good about that. So just for yucks, I applied to med school, and back then, your chance of getting in was 1 in 7. They only took 1 out of every 7 applicants. So towards the end of my 3rd year, during the application season, I got accepted. I said, whoa. And all my fraternity brothers and colleagues said, that's it, man. Forget this lawyer stuff. You just won the lottery.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What was your degree in your first 4 years there?
It was a liberal arts degree.
Okay.
And with a psychology minor.
Okay.
They didn't allow you to have a major. You had to get a full, complete education, every single student that graduated.
Wow.
There was not a little math major for engineering, this and that. You got the choice of subjects, but all of them had to blend into this picture of the liberal arts and a so-called liberal education.
Like you're saying, that emphasizes the own person's original thought and creativity, and that's where they're not telling you how to think, they're making you think.
Well, they make you think by exposing them. When I went into school, I would call myself moderately religious. I certainly believed in God. I certainly knew the big guy was watching, and that limited whatever evil I might think, because the big guy was always watching. And I went to church not every Sunday, but out of a month, maybe I go two Sundays. Because Mom was saying,
Yeah, make sure you're going, make sure you're going.
go. Well, after my first year at Columbia, when I was blitzed, I was having to read a complete 400 or 500 page book every 3 days for just one class. And so my reading speed had to bring. But what it exposed me to was so much of the thought process that leads to agnosticism and atheism. And now you say, what about all the Chinese? Are they all wrong? How come, where was Jesus for the Chinese? What about the Jews? They were right there. They didn't convert. Now a bunch of them converted and became Christians, but the Jewish establishment, the religious establishment, wanted Christ out of the picture because he was a troublemaker. He upset their little financial apple cart. So then I totally lost my religion. It just went out. And what happens is when you're young and you lose your religion, you start floating. You're not tethered. You don't know where to go. You don't know why you would even go there. My second year, I was doing fine. I was keeping up with academics. In my second year, I hit the bottom, became very depressed, suicidal in fact. Sort of like, why am I doing all this? There absolutely is no purpose to life. I'm not different from my damn dog, except that I can speak to me. The dog is probably happier than I am. And I would sit on my window, or I was in the dorms and my window overlooked Amsterdam Avenue. I'd sit out on the ledge, the window open, looking at the 6-story drop and say, with just this much effort, it could have bowled me over. And yeah, my mom would be a little upset. Little did I know it would have destroyed her. But when you're 20, you're not really aware so much of this father and mother child love, where the loss of a child just guts you. But my thought was, nobody's going to care. I'm done. And I stayed in my room. I did go to work because I had to eat. Didn't go to classes. And just sat at my little desk and tried to reason my way through this. And finally, I came up with a philosophy that I carried with me from that point forward, well through the late stages of my life. The philosophy being that there is given us certain behaviors that are rewarding without any explanation. You can't explain why they're rewarding. You just can't. For example, helping someone in need, it's very rewarding. For example, a young woman walks into a room with a 6-month-old baby. She goes over to it immediately, puts it to her shoulders, and she becomes suffused with a warmth and a loving sensation that there is no explanation for. And I worked off of that. The prime command survived. The second command. And then I worked out a series of behaviors based on those two commands that would be rewarding. And after a week and a couple of days in my room working out this philosophy, I said, okay, I can go through my life and experience rewards without a God in heaven. Yes, I'm not tethered to anything. I don't think I know what the purpose of my life is, probably none. But at least, rather than smashing my brains out on Amsterdam Avenue in New York City, I have a reason to do things and go forth and enjoy things. And it wasn't until, when I was getting towards retirement age, and my surgical practice was slowing down a little bit by intention, that I started, as you said, reading again and thinking again, and that began within me a longing for some purpose in life, a longing for some meaning in life, more than what I had lived with for 60 years.
And this was as you were actively being adopted.
Yes.
Right? So you were through this whole time where you were reasoning purpose and fulfillment and trying to find that way. Would you consider yourself successful? Were you a successful student? Were you, I mean, you said you graduated valedictorian at Columbia.
No, I was in the top quarter of Columbia.
Okay.
I was the first valedictorian that they recognized at New York Medical College.
Okay, so it was a medical school you were
Yeah,
wow.
and I had the honor of giving a valedictory speech to a standing room only Carnegie Hall. It was just jam.
And here I am nervous on your back porch talking to you.
Yeah. So yeah, it was something. It was something that always troubled me. There were times I would walk out in the dark of night and look up at the sky and feel totally isolated, totally alone. No one was there to help me make my decisions. No one was there upon whom I could lean for wisdom or guidance. I was all alone. And I had 5 kids and a wife for whom I was responsible. I had a big surgical practice. And surgery, you're harming people before you make them well. You cut them open, and then you've got just make sure it's closed and everything's right. And that was a very rewarding career right there. But there was this emptiness. There always was this emptiness, this aloneness. So I never, despite all that I read and all the reasons why one might become an atheist, for example, the opioid of the masses, right? As Marx would have us believe and understand, and many other people, all the atheists really believe that it's something that we gravitated to because we couldn't take life as it was. But I certainly was never that. I always fervently wished that I was religious because I saw that people who had a deep faith were happier than I was and more confident than I was and less concerned about life than I was. So there was always within me something, always within me the need, but it never really expressed itself until I never really had time to work on it until actually the time I'm retiring on the years beyond that.
So, and I share a lot of those same thoughts. Like you said, overthinking was what I would call going down those dark tunnels of thinking of going, what is the purpose? And a lot of the times I try to go back to the I'm slipping the word right now, but there's the yin and the yang of it, right? There's always black and white. It's more binomial than I think a lot of things. If nothing has purpose, or if everything has purpose, then there is no purpose, and then that's where you find yourself in those dark things. And like I said, I always fall back on my faith. I was raised Catholic. I've stayed Catholic, like you said, with good and bad scores throughout the day and attendance. But it's great to hear you say that you overcame that, by years and years of battling those thoughts out with family to rely on and a wife that relied on you. What kind of hurdles did you have to find yourself through between? Because I know you graduated medical school successfully, right? And then you had a time in the Special Forces.
Yes.
Which branch was that?
No, Special Forces is Army. Today it's called Special Operations.
Okay.
And I was part of the 7th Special Forces Group and the 10th Special Forces Group. We had in my officers class, when I applied for Special Forces, I hit another low spot in my life. I had been, in fact, the fraternity guys called me straight arrow because it was always by the rules. And I never strayed from the path through college, med school. Internship is where it kind of, I hit the wall a little bit.
And who was that with?
The internship?
Yes.
It was in the military.
Okay.
Because we had no money. When I got married, my wife was a secretary, highly trained secretary, trained in New York at Catherine Gibbs, which is, you wouldn't know, but it's well renowned.
Okay.
And so the idea was we'd get married, she'd work enough that I could get through med school. Well, after about a year of being married, she gets pregnant. And then the year after she gets pregnant, she's Catholic, by the way, and all of a sudden she's out of the workforce. and I had no money. And I did go to my father's boss before I went to med school, because even with her working, that's expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to borrow from him $1,000 per year for med school.
Wow. And this was the same factory that your dad worked at prior?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. This is a big corporation. We're now part of Kimberly-Clark. They even works with me. And $1,000, to give you some idea, at the time, you could buy a really nice house for 10 or 12,000. Get that in perspective. So was Cindy.
10% of a house, but a nice and expensive.
Yes. Yes. The really upscale up to, houses that today we look at for $750, $850, that was $25,000.
Columbia might be close to $75,000 a year. Who knows?
It is.
Medical school.
So I borrowed money, but we run out. And now I got 3 kids. So I signed up for the early commissioning program of the military. And then I was obligated to apply for a military internship. So I went, I lucked out, I got Hawaii. That's just where his dad was born.
My family was there for some time too, and they loved it. My cousin's there right now, who's an Army Ranger. He's having a great time. At least being in Hawaii for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the only time in my life I got discriminated against.
Really?
Oh yeah, I was a blue-eyed Howley.
I did hear about that. That it does get, especially back then, was probably still is. I want to talk to him.
Nah,
I don't know if I can interview an active Army Ranger, but I'll have to wait a couple years for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a lot changed. The population has tripled. It's more cosmopolitan.
Okay.
And, the Hawaiians and Samoans are less racist than they were. So yeah. So in the middle of my internship, I hit a low spot. My relations with my wife were not rocky, but just I'm married, and now I have 3 children, and did I make the right choice? Is it one that I should spend my life with? And at the same time, I ran into some issues as an intern. I had, because my last year in medical school was actually an internship. It was one of the early medical schools that did that. So a lot of things that they wanted to teach me, I already knew. And that created a problem for them and for me. So, about midway through my internship, they had me lined up for the residency in internal medicine. I was going to go to Texas. And I just said, no, I'm not doing this. I told them I'm not taking that residency. And then my alternative was to spend the time I owed the Army, which had been 3 years more, in one of those little offices at some fort, like Fort Campbell, Kentucky. And I talked to some of the guys that had done some of that duty, and I said, what did you see? And they said, sore backs, sore throats, and little else. I said, ooh. And at that time, the Vietnam War was going on, and it was a 7-month temporary duty. And so I said, okay, I'm going to sign up for Special Forces. Went down to my intern advisor, who was a major at the time. He says, Doc, he says, you out of your ever-loving mind? What the hell are you telling me? I said, no, I'm serious. Doc, you know what they do? You know you're going to Vietnam? I said, yeah. Okay. He said, that's such a priority, I can get you in 15 minutes. And it took him probably 32 minutes. He says, you're assigned.
So how old were you right around that time? You went eight years of college at that point.
I was 26 years old.
26, okay.
And I was extraordinarily fit. I played football in high school. I was a college wrestler. I never had a day in my life that I was not fit up until that point. I ran, I worked out, I stayed really fit. So I wasn't concerned about the physical aspect of Special Forces at all. And I know I was going to have to jump out of airplanes. I had some thoughts about that. But the hell, everybody else did it. I guess I could.
Yeah.
So when I finished up my internship, I had to go to Fort Benning, jump school. From there, I went to Fort Bragg and waited around for an opening in the officers course. and they did not give a darn about the fact that I was a doctor. Absolutely had no concern about that. I was a Special Forces officer trainee. Had a little, instead of the patch, I had a little dash on my green beret. and I went through the same officer school as officers who'd been in the military 4, 5, 6, 7 years. Some West Point graduates were lucky enough to get in. And so we went through, I got the exact same training as any officer in Special Forces.
Did it give you like a soft target, like, oh, big shot doctor coming in, or was it just more overall hazing? Was it specific to being a doctor, or was it just overall hazing? No?
They made me the team demolitionist. They wouldn't make me the medic because that was too easy. I had to do what every other officer, I had to assemble and disassemble weapons in the dark. And that is one of the ones I really struggle with. Man, I'm just not mechanically adept. I really struggle. That was the hardest part of that whole course for me. I had to do all the physical fitness, all the exercises. I had to eat frickin' worms and rats. Anything that you'd expect Special Forces to do, that's what I had to do.
Wow.
And
you don't put that in the promo videos for recruitment.
Not on the commercials.
Yeah. So when I graduated from the officers course, it was time to be assigned, and they had something I had never had before in my lives. They had 6 doctors in their course.
Wow.
They were lucky if they ever got 1 or 2. So the colonel who was in charge said, look, all you guys have requested Vietnam. We have exactly 2 slots there, and we have 1 slot in Okinawa that's back and forth there. And it had become a 13-month tour by then.
Wow.
So we all put in our lots, and names were picked out. And it come to my name, and he says, oh, you're going to the 10th Special Forces. I had never heard of them. I said, where's that? They said, oh, it's in Bavaria. It's the 10th Mountain Division. So I said, okay, this is going to be different. So I never ended up going to Vietnam. Myself and one of the other docs in my class ended up in the 10th Mountain Division.
Wow.
Which was fortunate, because at that time in my life, I was struggling with who I am, what I wanted. I could very well have ended up having an affair with some nurse, below my marriage with 3 children. All those were possibilities. Come back in some way tainted. But I was gung-ho to go. So, yeah. The tour I did with them, again, I was not treated like a doctor. I did run the dispensary. The other doc and I ran the dispensary for the troops, and we took some night call for the overall dispensary.
Okay.
But I was responsible for medical intelligence in the East Bloc, which had to do with what viruses, what diseases were prevalent, what we would face if the balloon went up and we had to cross over into the Eastern Bloc. And so I had a top secret security clearance. I couldn't get anywhere within 2 miles of the border.
Yeah.
I couldn't go to Berlin, and I couldn't even fly there. And it was interesting. I ran a dog lab where we anesthetized them and then shot them with high-powered weapons. And then I trained Special Forces medics on debridement and antibiotics and respiratory care for these dogs. And then, unfortunately, halfway through that, the Germans found out. They said, "Was? You're killing dogs? Nicht? Gone. Weg." So we ended with goats. Well, nobody likes a damn goat. You cannot like a goat. They smell bad, and they have a bad attitude.
I'm not sure they like us either. I think sheep might actually like us, cows maybe, but I don't think goats are mean.
No, they don't. They have a bad attitude. So whereas before, the medics, when they had a sick dog, they had debrided the wound and all, but the damn dog was sick and infected. They spent the whole night with the dog. They'd stay right in the lab, the dog was birthed, watching their patient. Not a one would come in for a sick goat.
Yeah.
No love lost.
Does any of that parallel with your military transition experience? Because you went out of high school, right?
Yeah. I knew I wasn't gonna do well in college, and so I just knew
You didn't have a wife or kids.
Yeah, my dad was pretty upfront with me. He was upfront with myself, or myself and my sisters. He was like, I'm not paying for your college. My dad joined the Army as well, so I'm third generation. And so I've taken football very seriously, but I wasn't fast enough or big enough. Thought I was gonna get a scholarship, and scholarships that I was able to get were like, we'll pay for your books.
A couple books.
You look the rest of the way. I joined the Army, and I tried out for EOD, which none of my family was really.
You'll have to tell them what EOD is.
I worked with the Marine EOD.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. He showed me videos of him setting off the charges they find out there.
Yeah. It was my family wasn't too excited. I mean, it's a form of special. I mean, they're like.
I was excited. I was wondering what we were going to do with his ashes.
Yeah. Well, it didn't work out.
As my coworkers say, if you could find them.
Yeah.
If you could
That's a thought. We'd find a few chips of him and say, well, this is my grandson. Where are we going to put him?
Yeah.
And he got lucky because he's got 2 Purple Hearts, and I haven't asked him to interview him yet, but he's told me some crazy stories. He's had too many close calls, and that's. But your family had every right to be worried.
Yeah.
Picture your mom being worried right now.
I have the most respect for those guys. I mean, it's crazy what they do. I mean,
any crossover of training stations?
Yeah. So I was airborne as well. I went to Fort Benning, Georgia. Went to jump school, and he literally did. Like the training is not that much different. I mean, maybe, physically and how they treated the soldiers probably.
Are you serious? They treated me like dog crap.
Yeah, well, that's
especially because I was a captain.
There's no more rats. I think you ate them all. Probably.
Yeah. Well, no, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying, over the years, like, you talk to a 90s Army guy, and then you try to compare your training to theirs, they'll be like, oh, yours is, nothing compared to what I went through, kind of thing. Like, it's a lot more.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
No, it's changed.
It's changed. It's changing now.
With the Department of War and Hegseth, it's changed back towards the 90s.
Yeah.
Like he says, no dudes in dresses.
Yeah. No, but I remember telling you, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to go do the tower, the 250-foot tower. I mean, it's the same thing, same exact drills and everything.
What's the tower?
So it's this 250-foot tower that I thought it was worse than actually jumping out of a plane. It was where they put you in your harness, and they strap the chute up to where like it's already open, and then they slowly pull you up into the air 250 feet up, and then you hear like a jumper ready, and they drop you and you float down to the ground, but the whole time you're looking at the ground as they're lifting you up.
So you're working on landings without jumping out of planes.
Yeah, pretty much. And it's nice soft sand, I mean, if some people, like, if the wind would pick up, they would get thrown into the parking lot or something like that. But my first jump was what they call a night jump, where I closed my eyes and I just ran right out the door.
They call it a night jump because your eyes are closed.
Yeah.
That's
so. But I mean, he did. Like, you talking about for special forces, you guys do like halo jumps and stuff like that. I was always attached to a plane.
What's a halo then?
High altitude, low open. Yeah, and they wanted me to do halo. I had, interesting, about 2 weeks prior to that, I treated one of the halo guys, who, when his chute opened, unfortunately, was between his testicles and his body. I mean, that sucker, when you're falling at maximum velocity, and I don't know whether they had a drogue chute on that or not. I wouldn't think so, because it opens and bang, and whatever that strap's on gets really smacked. And he had some really purple genitalia.
Oh.
And he was walking with a very noticeable limp.
That's great.
And so I said to the guy, one of the sergeants said, hey, Doc, why don't you sign up for the Halo team? I said, let me tell you something. I said, I will. If you'll give me any circumstance in the world where, as a medical officer, I said, because, that's what I'm going to be, and that's what I'll always be, you're going to sling me across the Iron Curtain onto the east side at high altitude. Is there any chance in the world? Well, no, that's not likely. I said, so there's your answer. Yeah. They were, at that time, there was the Iron Curtain. And we had, in the 10th Mountain Division, by purpose they were assigned there, we had a lot of Eastern European naturalized immigrants. They were American citizens now, but they spoke, whether it's Polish, German, any part of Yugoslavia. And they would take them up right to the border, make a sharp turn, and sling them out beyond the Iron Curtain. So they landed behind the Iron Curtain, and their job was just to work their way through. And because they spoke the language and actually had family with them there, yeah, none of them ever had any problem. And it used to really enrage the Russians that they would do that. That used to really enrage them. And you know, that wasn't anything they were going to want me to do. Not a chance. They wouldn't let me, with that top secret security clearance, they wouldn't let me near the border. What, they're going to throw me over the Iron Curtain? Not likely.
Yeah, your information was too valuable. Your access was too valuable to risk.
Yeah.
So the high altitude, that's interesting. I think I've heard Halo. I don't think I've ever had it breaking down for me before. But
yeah, I mean, they're
put a plane way up so the radar can't catch you, and then open up late.
High enough that you have to wear frost protection.
Really?
On your face, everywhere, because they're throwing you out as high as that plane can fly.
So what were you jumping out of in that scenario?
In that scenario, I was jumping at 1,000 feet actual, thereabouts. Any kind of a two-engine craft they could find that would hold us, we'd jump. There was a part of the Air Force that was special ops that you don't hear about, and their job was to support, the Green Berets, and they flew some junk. C-47. C-47.
Okay.
Is a tail dragger, two-engine, old as World War I, just about. Creaky, but that we jumped out of those. Helicopters sometimes, but those are always fun jumps.
Okay. Why were they fun?
Well, because if we had a mandatory one jump a month.
Okay.
Mandatory. And if somehow something happened, maneuvers or something, you were behind that jump, they could get a helicopter in there and they could take 4 people up, go 1,000 feet, put your feet on the rail and go for it. And you just jump and the parachute kind of, you feel thump, thump, and the chute's open. When you're going out of something that's going along at 120, 140, all you feel is a little click as the chute leaves the deployment bag, and then poof, and your feet do one of these because the chute opens with a big jerk, and you get this big boost, and then you got to orient yourself. So jumping out of a helicopter was like daisies.
Like the tower jump a little bit, maybe.
Oh yeah, and plus you get like a longer fall, like when.
Yeah, and we were. A lot of the jumps were night jumps because most special forces jumps were night jumps, and a lot of them were operational jumps. I mean, I have to admit to being fearful on a couple of them. I mean, had my first night jump with them, I was carrying over 100 pounds of gear. I had communications gear, but I also had the full medical gear. And because this time now I wasn't the team demolitionist, I was actually the team doctor, so I got all the medical gear. And it was completely operational. The plane had no lights. There were no lights when we jumped out. Lights flared up on the ground only for maybe 15, 20 seconds to let the pilot know, okay, this is the drop zone. But out you go into the dark, and if you see the German fields, they're not big, wide. It's not Kansas.
Okay.
They're little plots with a lot of barbed wire and things that stick up in the air, carts, stuff on the ground. And I'm thinking, I'm out of there with 100 pounds of gear. You talk about puckered. Man, I was puckered. I mean, when on the way down, gas couldn't have passed between my legs. They were so tight together, lest I hit that barbed wire. And it was the first night jump I had with heavy gear. So I said to one of the guys, I said, and I had to drop this gear. It was on a long deployment rope, but it was like 30, 40 feet, because you didn't want to land with 100 pounds on the back, or front, especially on your front. So I said, how do I know? It's black dark out there. He said, don't worry, Doc. He said, you'll smell the ground. I said, what? He said, Doc, and this is Sergeant E7 with been forever in Special Forces. I said, I'm going to believe him. He said, Chuck, he said, look, relax, enjoy the ride down. Yeah, it's pitch dark. And he knew I was keeping the legs together. He said, but when you smell the ground, just hit the D-ring and deploy the bag. Don't you think I wasn't frightened on the way down? I mean, you know. And there was nothing to see. You couldn't even hear the plane with the wind whistling, nothing on the ground. And I'm sitting down, all of a sudden, oh my God, I smelled the ground. Pulled that ring, down goes this heavy package, and within 2 or 3 seconds I hear it, thump, it hits the ground. I mean, those are some of the things that were challenging and interesting.
Did you smell ground too, or how'd that work?
I don't know. I was in Alaska, so like a lot of my jumps were like in the winter time, and it was, you know, when a normal jump on the ground, you're doing it's called like a PLF, and it's where you're supposed to, kind of angle yourself to where you kind of do somewhat of a roll.
Mm-hmm.
But in Alaska, you have 5-6 feet of snow, so you'd hit the ground and we just kind of lawn dart, just get stuck there. And then, that was, I mean, I've done some night jumps, but I felt like if it was never to where it was pitch black where I couldn't see absolutely anything. I felt like I could always see the tree line, and when I knew I saw the tree line coming, that was when I was getting close to the ground. But no, yeah, especially when you land in the snow like that, and then you have to pack up and take all your stuff with you. Going through that is horrible. You have a bunch of dudes quitting, throwing their stuff everywhere, cussing everybody out. You have to walk like a mile in the snow. Yeah, it was not fun. Jumping out and landing was the best part, but getting all your stuff and going to the rally point or whatever, it was horrible.
Yeah, I live by the DeLand Airport, and that's what they have a big skydiving facility there and training, so they're always circling coming down. You can see them from our house. They don't have to carry their stuff afterwards, and most of them are strapped to some instructor anyways.
Yeah.
Have either of you done it for fun since then?
I haven't.
Yeah, jumped out of...
Well, I think if you were free diving, it might be fun.
Yeah.
But just floating in a parachute, I had 50-some jumps, and I was a senior parachutist, and I had some water jumps that were it's different. Yeah, I've not done that for fun. And again, to show you that they didn't care that I was an MD at all. When I got there, a couple of weeks after I got there, I was called to the colonel's office. He was in charge of the whole group, 10-2. He says, Captain Dixon, he said, I understand that you're scuba certified. I said, yes, so I am. Said, mm-hmm. He said, I understand also that during the officer's course, you were the team demolitionist. I said, yes, sir, I was. He said, good. He says, as of next week, you're going to be in charge of the underwater recovery and demolitions team for all of Europe, and we'll give you some additional training that you'll need. He didn't give off that as a medical officer, and that's how it should be. So until just probably 7 or 8 months later, a senior infantry officer came in that it had training, and my job passed to him. But in that period of time, you had to do a lot of training. They had type of cold water. But it was fascinating. It was just absolutely fascinating. At one point, we were in Livorno, and that's where the Tower of Pisa is. And I was in charge of the group of a 12-man team that were all part of the underwater recovery. And we had to swim in that murky-looking Italian water. It was yucky. Right, using some swim boards and some direction, swim underneath the Italian Navy boats were there and put charges, explosive charges on them. Now they would only go pain, they wouldn't hurt anything. And the Italian Navy knew we were doing that. But that was pretty exciting because you couldn't see anything once you were under, and we had to go by sound, apparently. didn't know, but they leave the prop when the ship is in dock, and it's like ever so slowly just turning. And they said, listen for the motor, and you'll know where to place the shots. Okay. It was a very rewarding several years in Special Forces. Met some of the most patriotic men that I could ever wish to meet. Honorable, really good guys. And no messing around. If you messed around at all, got drunk, got in a fight, pack your bags. You're done. Because they couldn't trust you. You go on an overseas assignment, and you get into some whoosh, and you become a jerk. Just show them one time that you do that, done. All that Special Forces training, gone, you're out.
You said you were leading 7 or 12. How many men was it on that underwater demo?
There were, I'm going to say 12, 14 or so.
Yeah, so I mean, if you're 1 for 14, that's a big chunk of your crew that you can't depend on, and you're one less. That's got to make sure that you're behaving all properly.
Well, all of these people, there were no unreliable soldiers in Special Forces. Zero. Not even the cooks. Nobody's unreliable. Don't get me wrong, there's a couple times, Master Sergeant, the Group Master Sergeant, Irish guy, what is it, Irish guy, he got drunk at a party and said a bunch of stuff to me that he shouldn't. I mean, just this and that. Come back the next day, hat in hand, said, forget it. He said, yeah, man. He said, I got into some good hooch. He said, I said, get it. Hold on. So, but that, I just never saw anything. Fights? Never.
It's interesting to me because, we played football. That's the closest I ever got to feeling that kind of camaraderie. I wasn't enlisted or not an officer or anything like that, but that testosterone, that tension, when you're at a high level of execution and you're doing things that take every single part of your manhood, it's easy for tension to flare. So that's surprising. But like you said, it takes a certain quality and caliber man to do the Special Forces. And like you're saying, you graduated with an MD, you're a family man, and you're able to go learn several other skills that were outside of your purview to even do, I think. And it just goes to show you why our Special Forces are so good, and because they has caliber men like you that are able to execute and learn and
they do
stay disciplined.
Let me tell you, it's a lot harder for an enlisted man first to get into Special Forces. You can apply for it, and there's a lot of applications. And then if you're accepted, then you have to go through before you even do the training, you have to, what Christopher did, you have to go through a screening school. And the screening itself is physically brutal, mentally brutal. And they drop out 3/4 or more of their applicants. Then you can go to Special Forces training. So when you talk about, I was a Green Beret, but not like Sergeant Smith. Sergeant Smith went through hell to put that beret on his head. Yeah, I went through a strenuous officer's course. And none of it, I went hungry, I went cold, but I did not suffer. And I didn't do anything that was recklessly dangerous, out of that course. Those guys, my grandson, his cousin, broke a leg with it, and he didn't get through. And if anyone would have thought, we'd have thought if anyone gets through, it'd be Christopher, but he didn't. So Special Forces, truly, they're special.
Now, you said cold and hungry, and that you didn't feel like you suffered. Do you think any of your upbringing or childhood experiences or young adulthood experiences you said you were impoverished, you were trying to put food up, your family was trying to put food on the table. Do you think, because some people would come from not having that background and have to go cold and suffer, and a lot of those 75% dropouts or whatever you're saying.
Now, my dad made enough where, they lived on hand-me-downs and old cars. He always drove an old car. But there was always food on the table. I was never... I think what happens with any adult, if you're on a training like this, and we were trying to run a guerrilla warfare against the 82nd Airborne, that was part of our mission. And if you don't have security, you can't have any smoke, then you hope you have something you can eat raw. And if you're going to be up for 36 or 48 hours straight, you can't stop and eat. You would if you could, but you can't. So that, and it was cold. It began in January, and it was in the hills of North Carolina. It gets cold there, in the Pisgah National Forest. But nothing a guy that's 26 years old can't take. Nothing.
Which was something to go home to.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I never experienced it, so all I get is the stories from like guys like you that went off and did that. I had a couple other guys that were jumpers, and it is, and now you're back. Thank God. So
well, the jumping really is probably the least of it. It's the least of it. I mean, my first jump with them, you talk about I needing something to like. I tell you what, I need something to tighten up my bowels. First of all, they were putting a chute on me that I had never jumped with. It was a steerable chute.
okay.
And my instruction was 2 minutes. Like, any jerk would understand this. So yeah, you take out the support, and that way you can pull your harnesses. And if you want to go left, you pull the left down and pull it back up on the right, and it'll steer you this way because there's a hole in the back, and the air coming in is jetting out that hole. And oh, by the way, we're jumping on St. Mary Leaves, which is a big drop zone there, but we jump on the area that has the power lines. And oh, by the way, you're going out the back of the airplane. Man, when I got done with that jump and missed the power lines, landed on the ground, I virtually leaned down and said, Mother Earth, I love you. I'm glad to be on the ground.
Did going up in the air ever get you closer back to your religious leanings?
Nah.
Get a little closer to him up there?
Nah. I never thought about, well, if I die doing this, what'll happen to me? That never crossed my mind. It crossed my mind I could die, but it never crossed my mind, well, what's the consequences of dying? It was a time in my life when, remember, at 20, I'd had this breakdown, and at 20, I had evolved my own philosophy, and for me, there was no place to go. If I died, I died.
No worries stressing about it.
No, I wasn't at all religious. Always supportive of religion, envious of those who had faith, but I was not religious.
Do you have any questions based on that? Any that you've heard or familiar from your talkings with Grandpa?
I don't know. Did you ever find anything in those rivers?
Dead animals.
Oh yeah.
I never had the luxury, and I say that laughingly, of having to pull out a dead GI.
Mm.
Every animal we found was when we expected to find the GI. It was always in the dam, in the great dam, and you grope them because it's always muddy water. So the water's always high. The GI's drink and fall in. That's the end of it.
Mm.
Cold. You talk about some cold water. What was that?
Ooh.
Yeah, and unfortunately, my term was limited. The guys that ran it did find a couple of GIs in Germany, but I mean they would get called to Belgium if need be. Going with.
Yeah.
So, how long was your tour over there in Italy?
My tour was in Germany.
Germany, okay.
And in the German Alps, in southern Germany. And that was just about a 3-year tour. But then I said, you know what? And I was enjoying it. I learned to speak German. I was commanded to learn to speak German. This is if you're a special forces officer, you got to blend. And by the time my wife came, I was separated from my wife from March until August. By the time she came, I could speak German. And the Germans knew I wasn't German. They were, but they didn't know what I was. They didn't know I was an American. They just knew I wasn't German.
Huh?
Yeah. So I got to thinking, you know what? You're not going to be a special forces doctor all your life. What are you going to be? You got to get more education. So halfway through my last year, I applied for surgical residencies. And I thought, because of liking mountains and all, I liked Colorado. So I got accepted at the University of Colorado and at the Army installation in Denver. And the big difference was I would make a whole lot more money in the residency in Denver, so I could feed my family. And it was every other night, not straight nights. So,
Okay.
and it wasn't a system where you start out with 4 residents and only 2 make it to the top. I knew I wasn't going to get cut if I performed. So yeah, I left Europe and took up a 4-year surgery residency.
This was roughly 27, 28 years old.
And I was 30.
You about 30 at this time? Okay.
Yeah, because I was...
Yeah, if you're 26 and 3 years in Germany, okay.
From my internship from the time I started my residency, it was 4 years.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, so I started my residency, and that was some hard work. Of course, any surgery residency it's not anymore. It was very hard work. A lot of hours, always over 100 hours on your feet every week. Some hours even more. Some weeks, you wondered when you're ever going to sleep. It was so difficult.
Wow.
But that was typical. That wasn't just me. Everybody everywhere was doing the same thing. And from
there's a lot of jobs that you're on your feet all day, but there's not a lot of jobs where you're on your feet all day and you're cutting people open to try to help them. That's a lot of physical and mental fortitude there.
It's a lot of awakeness. It really is. So from there, by the time I finished my residency, I had become a lieutenant colonel because of promotions. With my background, with my top secret security clearance, with my special forces history, they put me on the advanced list for rank. So I went from there. I was thinking about staying in the Army because I liked it on there. I liked the people. But I realized that I was not on the track to go to maybe Walter Reed or one of the Army teaching hospitals, at least not right away.
Mm-hmm.
And I just said, okay, what I wanted to do was either teach or go to Polar Practice. And so I told them, I said, well, okay, I'll be getting out after I do my time with you guys. So I went to Augusta, Georgia, and I spent 3 years there. And because I was academically interested, after I got midway through the first year, and I found out that Medical College of Georgia was there, and they were needing surgeons. They were down, their staff was down. I said, heck, I could go over there and help them maybe once a week or so. So I did that, and when it was time for me to get out of the Army, they just pleaded with me to join their staff. So I went and I became an assistant professor of surgery, and I did basically 3 years there, and was running out of money because the pay was lower than the Army, substantially.
Wow.
And Jimmy Carter came on board, was the governor, and he said the doctors couldn't take any money that they earned seeing patients. They had to be paid the university salary like everybody else. So that put me in bind, and I had to start working several weekends, maybe 2 weekends a month in an emergency room, South Carolina. I said, okay. That, and my boss said, you're doing a good job. I can move you up through the ranks and you can be chief of surgery someday. But here's what you have to do. And he wanted me to write a lot of papers, and most of those papers are meaningless. They're just trash that gets you on the route to becoming an academic leader. My father decided, I got 5 kids at that time. There wasn't going to be enough money in it if I stayed in it. So I ended up leaving there and going into private practice. And I've been in private practice. I ended up at private practice my career.
So you came back from the war, and did you have a kid in Colorado, or was it in North Carolina? The other two were born?
No, I had 3. 2 that were born in Jersey.
Okay.
His dad was born in Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
We had one that we planned that was born in Germany.
One that...
That's the only one. And then by the time I got to my residency, my wife was having issues with the birth control pill. She was given headaches and migraines. So she was off of that for a short period of time, and we had our 5th one. She was born in Denver, Colorado. So yeah, 5 kids in 7 years. That was a bunch.
With 4 different birth certificate seals.
Yeah.
Across the state.
Yeah. Yeah, they were randomly spread around.
That's funny.
Yeah. So then, from that point on...
And your private practice started here in Inverness?
No, my private practice started in Vincennes, Indiana.
Okay. That's right. So you said so, Indiana.
Yeah, I was there with two guys. We were a 3-man partnership, and I brought one of my friends in. It was a 4-man partnership, and I had some difficulties being straight arrow again. You know, I was, for them, for private practice, it was too straight, too pure. And what precipitated my downfall was coming in one night on a patient whose aneurysm I had operated on, because the nurse called me and she says, Dr. Dixon, I don't know what's wrong with Mrs. Smith. I forgot her name by now, but I just know something's not right. Something's not right. And so I said, and I know to listen to these intensive care nurses. If they just think something's not right, you better go look. So I go in there and examine her, and sure enough, she's in early congestive heart failure. She's taken on water. She's got a third heart sound. And so I said, okay. Well, the big mistake I made was I treated her. I'm there. I didn't come in to see the patient. I put her on a drug that removes excess water. I put her on a drug that strengthens her heart. Left a big note describing everything, went home. Next morning, the internal medicine doc comes in. He's livid.
This was your partner?
No, he was my partner. He's internal medicine.
Okay.
He was the doctor who referred the patient to me. He was totally livid that I had done medical treatment as a surgeon, although it was effective. By the time he came in, the patient was breathing fine. Everything was fine. She was out of congestive heart failure. She'd peed 5 or 6 liters of fluid that she didn't need. But because I broke with protocol, they decided they'd teach me a lesson. So the internal medicine guys all decided, not only that, but there was other things where I had been critical of some of the stuff that was just not quite good medicine. They would teach me a lesson and they would stop referring to me. And of course I lived on referrals.
Yep.
So I noticed my referrals started going down, and about that time I had come here to visit my brother who had moved here from Jersey. And then I finally found out from one of the docs, an internist who was my friend, he says, yeah, you know, the cardiologist and some of the people all decided that they needed to teach you a lesson. I said, well, lesson learned, I'm leaving. So I just pulled up roots and moved here.
And I see that. So I'm a professional engineer, and we see that with the different disciplines that you can go down and do that. So I've never heard in our profession of that happening. Now, you've heard of people overdoing it and crossing the line when they shouldn't have, and because they don't have the expertise or experience in it. But would you say you had the experience or know-how with internal medicine to be able to give her medication like that? Like, you felt comfortable doing it, obviously. Do you think you had a good background in it, or was it more of a hunch that you acted on?
No, as the top graduate from my medical school, scoring in the 98th percentile in the national medical exams, I didn't forget that medicine. It wasn't all that far ago. I knew it in blind. I could diagnose it and treat it. I never even thought about it. It was simple.
Mm-hmm.
Just simple. You know, in a simple case of early congestive heart failure, how do you treat it? Lasix and digitoxin. Done.
And it worked.
Oh, by the next morning she was all true. All
But it's crazy because, I mean, you would think that as doctors, yes, I know it's a business and it's a craft and it's your expertise and livelihood and all that thing, but it's also about the patient. So why wouldn't they be happy that they have someone they can refer that can help them and
well,
maybe be a second opinion for them?
Let me tell you what I learned. Here's how you do it. I learned. This guy was named Combs, Dan Combs. You make the diagnosis, you got everything there, and you call him up. Take a minute, call him up and say, hey, Dan, I was in the hospital seeing Mrs. Smith. The nurse said there was something wrong. And I listened to her chest, and I heard a third heart sound. And I looked at her fluid balance, and she's about 3 liters more in than's out. And I said, I think she's got early congestive heart failure. And that's, it's affecting her pulse rate. It's affecting her blood pressure. You know, what can we do? And he would have said, oh, thanks so much, Bill. Put the nurse on. And he would have ordered Lasix and digitoxin. And he would have thought I was the greatest guy in the world. So political correctness was, you don't do that. You just call them. that way, and my thought was, oh, he doesn't have to come in. I got the diagnosis. Why make him come in? I already know the diagnosis. I'll just write a script, go home, everything. Well, no. He wasn't going to come in anyway because I had the diagnosis. He was just going to call the nurse, and then under his name was treatment. I learned that lesson. In the military, doctors don't have egos so much.
It's about the patient.
It's all about the patient because every patient is every doctor's patient. And in academics, nobody has an ego because the medical students, the residents are all treating them. They're everybody's patient. So I had zero private practice contact, zero. And boy, it was a lesson learned. But it was a good lesson because I ended up here.
With your own private practice.
Let me get you guys a couple of beers here. I got some chips. I got some little sauce for them. Why don't we do that? Would you turn it off and take a break?
Pringles, your sponsor.
Let me share with you a couple of important things I've learned.
This wisdom is going to take a warfighter, better-known tobacco company. I've had these for a while, so I didn't just buy them because I was going to talk to you
What's on
guys.
the emblem? Oh, is it an operator?
Like an ops guy, yeah. Like an ops guy.
Nice.
So, special operator background, I think, but I got him out in St. Augustine.
Nice.
There you go. That's a real stogie.
It is one. See if I can get through it, but please, I would love to have Kane ask questions that he wants to be able to show his kids and himself. I mean, and me. I mean, share your wisdom with us because that's.
Well, let me hit two points. 2 points. And then whatever questions you have is good. First one I've learned is that really the best way to live your life is to be of service. By that I mean focus on helping people, anybody. Focus on giving of yourself. And the reason for that is back to my original philosophy before I, got back to religion, as to things that feel good for which there's no explanation, is that there is this intense reward for helping people, for being kind to people, for caring about people. And all the love and care that you have within you that you give won't even touch the amount that is within you available. It's not like money. You only have a certain amount of money to give. You don't have a certain amount of love and care. It's an unlimited supply. And if you concern yourself, say, if you're the guy that says, how can I help? Or if you know in someone that maybe they're afraid to ask help but need some help, if you help people, two things happen. One, your life satisfaction goes up about 5 notches. You are more at peace with yourself. You respect yourself more. You're satisfied with yourself more. Your satisfaction life goes up. And then, as an offshoot of all this giving, so much volunteered love and assistance floods back to you. People, you know what? Bill Dixon, he might be the guy that would enjoy doing this, or he might be the guy that might want to take on this assignment. Things like that, where when you've helped people, it makes an impression on them, and they are only too happy to return that to you. The opposite side of that coin is spending time worrying about yourself, about what are my assets, what is my career, what are the dangers here, what's the next good thing I can buy, where's the next good place I can go. All those self-centered seekings typically result in less satisfaction in life, fewer people in your life that you love and who love you, and actually, unless you're doing it after you've already made yourself a bazillionaire, less opportunity for success in life, in so much as opportunities won't be volunteered you. If you're giving and caring, people will go out of their way to find opportunities for you. They just will, because it makes them feel good. Hey, I just found something for Kane. He's going to love this. So in the quiet of your own mind, when you look out, your question when you get up in the morning should be, how can I be of service today? What can I do? And that's something that it took me years to learn. It took me a long time to really realize that all I had to do, particularly as a surgeon, all I had to do was say, okay, how can I be of service today? What is there for me to do, along with my work, where I can lend a little helping hand, do a little something? And if you adopt an attitude like that, you're happier and your life is going to be measurably more successful. No question about that. Is to start at the goal. What it is that I want. It can be, what do I want for my family? It can be, what do I want when I'm retired? What would be the ideal thing? It could be the new business I want, whatever that is. And then you work backwards, seeing what you're going to encounter that's potentially in the way of that goal. And invariably, there will be person or persons that are in the way to achieving that goal. That's not their purpose in life. That's not what they're there. But they will stand between you and that goal in some way. And the advice that I would give is to never do or say anything that will stand between you and that goal. And I will give you one example, which I wish I had known earlier in my career, because as a surgeon, as chief of surgery at the hospital, as chief of a 6-man surgical group, I had more pride than was good for me. And if one of my physician colleagues said something that was really inappropriate regarding me or my practice or any of my partners, or did anything that was really inappropriate, I had no problem just telling them, man, I don't like that. I don't like you particularly. So out of retirement, I was asked to be chief medical officer at the hospital downtown in Inverness, because they had had a big rift between management and staff, and they were getting a new management. They wanted to patch it. So I said, okay, that's the only reason I'm coming out of retirement. I'm going to do that for 1 year and go on. So I come in that office and I got to thinking about my position, and I realized, I said, you know what? I'm the chief medical officer, not for my surgical group, not for my friends, but for every doctor and nurse in that hospital. They are all my constituents. And sure enough, along the way, a physician would walk into my office and just criticize me, essentially blast me, because I should have done something and didn't, or something needs to be done and it's my fault. Days gone by, I would have picked them up by the seat of the pants and made sure that the door hit them on the way out. But I sat there, and my comment was always, well, you know, I'm really sorry that happened, and I'm really sorry you feel that way. It makes me feel bad that this has been so upsetting and hadn't worked out well. Give me some time, and let me see what I can do. Maybe I can find a way to fix this up. And then they'd leave. And this happened 4 or 5 times. Again, people I would have just blasted. Every single one of them came back in days or weeks later and said, you know, I was such an ass in your office. You know what? I'm just ashamed of how I acted. It wasn't anything. It wasn't all totally your fault. I was just, man, I said, hey, happens. Don't worry about it. And the 5 of them became my biggest supporters. So my goal was to put the staff back together, talking to each other and talking to the administration. These 5 guys stood in my way, and with the wrong words, they would have put the cabalics on achieving that goal. But putting my emotions aside, putting my pride aside, that's a big one. Speaking to them with kindness and caring, 5 out of 5 turned right around. And I said to myself, why didn't I do that when I was a practicing surgeon? Why did I blow some people off? You know, maybe they didn't know what they didn't know. Maybe they did this foolish thing because they just didn't know any better, or they thought something different. And since I've been doing that, and it's been years now, 15, 16 years. No, it's been 10 years, really, since I've adopted that attitude. My relationships, all, everywhere, have been so much better. I don't get angry. I don't carry a grudge. And anger is a deadly poison. You poison yourself to spite somebody else. That just doesn't work for you. And it's an impediment to achieving any goal. If you're angry, you can't think properly. You can't think rationally. So consequent to orienting myself to picking a goal and doing anything necessary to keep people, in particular, from blocking that goal, has improved my satisfaction in life and very much improved my efficacy. As a managing partner of 3 different real estate investments, I have to deal with many, many investors, and I use that exact same approach. If they complain about something, if there's an issue, I am so sorry you feel that way. Let me see if there's something I can do. Let me check with so-and-so. Maybe he knows something. All smooth. The business carries on.
There's one thing I know about real estate investing is that there's a lot of high emotions sometimes that have to be mitigated through.
So, and just one last point that fits in with that, and that is, your life is not set. Our lives are not set. When we go to bed at night, there's not one path when we wake up in the morning. There are multiple paths. And you get to choose, while you're drinking your coffee, which path you're going to take that day. You can nurture the grudge that you've been carrying or the anger and let that be the path you take and affect everything you do that day. You can dispense with, say, I forgive you even though you don't deserve it. You certainly don't deserve it. I can't think of anybody who deserves it less, but yet I forgive you. You know, that's on you, and move on to what you're going to do. You get to choose. Every single morning you get up multiple paths. And if you choose this path, your life is going to change in some way. Oh, it's going to trend. It'll be a pathway that's based on who you are and so on. But it will vary. It's not a standard given. You can make what happens in your life. You're not helpless. There, I have said my piece.
And I love that so much because I'm on the cusp of that way of thinking. So what you said, it's very, very home to hear. I think it answers what you were saying off camera of what can I tell my kids and how can they approach life every day. That right there, taking control in a way that is to a service to the people around you, because you acknowledge that everyone has their faults, including yourself. It puts you at ease with everything, knowing that most people aren't acting in malice. Most people aren't out to get you, right? There are a few evil people that have those ways.
Oh, indeed.
But most of it is incompetence on a scale of like, they just messed up. Or like they didn't do their best in that situation. Like the people that came to your office and given the right amount of time of reflection and the right treatment, they'll say, you know what? They'll self-reflect. And then your service passes on to someone else, and hopefully they keep passing on together. That's when people talk about world peace and solving the problems. I mean, it starts with solving your own problems and your own peace and carrying on the person. That's very well said, beautifully said, and just a whole lifetime behind it to solidify it even more than my big old dreams at my time in life. So, thank you for that. Do you have any questions for him on that one?
No, I mean, well said. I mean, it's
you're gonna have to think about that one all day.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's, especially, scolding people, especially people who are trying to do something for you, and you like scold them, I mean, I've definitely learned that only really works maybe in the Army because you have to do it. But like, especially in civilian world. I mean, if you yell at somebody, say, I don't know, be somebody as simple as somebody at a call center for Spectrum, you know, how much more motivated are they going to be to get what you need done or help you or point you in the right direction?
Right.
Or are they just going to shut off? And I feel like I've been learning that a lot.
Well, and it's something I did learn as a surgeon, because the surgeon by himself is helpless. Somebody's got to pass the instrument. Somebody's got to hold the wound open. Somebody's got to put a hand in when needed. And when I would encounter something unexpected, uncontrollable bleeding during the course of an operation, something, the exposure wasn't right, it was not getting enough of the view, this or that, invariably, I would take the laparotomy pads and put it on whatever's bleeding to staunch it. I'd say, team, things are not going well. This is a situation where, you know, we have some real problems here. I'm going to need all the help you can possibly give me. I'm going to need a little more exposure. I'm going to need a little more retraction over there. I need a different set of instruments, you know, holding the whole thing. I say, we got a patient whose life is in danger at this point. Let's get him through this. And the help I got from those people, because they're all, that's what they do for a living. That's what they want to do. You couldn't ask for better than that. If you just pause for a minute instead of saying, God damn it, I need more traction. What's wrong with you? Well, now you hurt somebody and they're trying to give you a traction. But if you say, what I'm going to need is a little more exposure. You know, I'm going to need somebody's hand here, steady without moving. And you know, and to the anesthesiologist, check and see if we have blood in the bank, because there may be more before I get this done. Smooth waters. And it's exactly what you're saying, Kane. You can't, rather than scold people, you say, no, things are just not working the way they ought to. How can I help you? What can we do to make this better? I know it can be better. What can I do? What can we do together to make this better? Way better than hurting their feelings, insulting them, or anything else.
I would call that real leadership. Like that, if you had to point to what a real leader does, it's leading with, you are pushing your people. You're not just, you're pulling them along. Right? You're going out in front and saying, I'm on your level. What can I do to help you? Which, like you're saying, the people that work with me under me at my company is like, okay, what can I do to make your life better so that way my life can be better, right? It's a help situation. You might not be doing it for that reason. You're doing it for the task to get done or whatever you're trying to serve for that time. But going down to that fun, and I think it goes into parenting. I haven't experienced any parenting yet, but how many times have you had a short temper or annoyance with your children?
Oh,
it's that
it sneaks up. It definitely sneaks up on you, even when you're, trying to focus on not blowing up. I mean, even then, it'll sneak up on you. They do something, I don't know, you walk into a room and the whole wall's colored on or something like that, and instinctual, what are you doing? Yeah, I'm going to kill you. But like,
there are pieces of you people won't recognize.
But it's disciplining yourself to take that step back and just be like, hey, they're a 3 and a 2-year-old. They don't know what they're doing. They think they're drawing me a beautiful picture on the wall for me. They don't.
I think from looking on the outside and trying to remember all those times, like seeing my parents parent my younger kids when I was a little bit older, kind of like more behaved and like, hey, I don't want to be a burden to my parents. I want my parents to help out. Hobbies. He's a nice looking one.
Yeah.
At least he's respecting the screen this time.
Yeah, right.
I think the people that say parenting is easy, I think have a good grasp on understand that parenting starts with them. Like they're not worried about their kids. They're understanding that I can control myself and my choices and my patience to be able to serve my kids in a way that can build them later on and serve them, right? Because if their kids are well behaved, you're well behaved, you have a good family function, it spreads and grows and passes down in generations. Because you and your wife seem to have a pretty good grasp. I haven't met your kids yet, but you guys seem to have a pretty good grasp. You don't look dead in the eyes like some people do and overwhelmed. You seem to have a good.
No, they're. I don't know. I believe I'm blessed with my kids. I mean, they're very chill. Grandpa over here, he might be a little biased, but he thinks Eli and Mike are the next Einsteins. And
they get to you.
Huh?
They must get it.
I think they skipped a generation. It came from him, you know.
They said the hair was supposed to skip a generation too, but here I am,
Right?
buzzed up.
So, I mean, they're pretty, like I said, they're pretty chill. I mean, they're, you know, especially now that they have each other, you know, I never had that brotherly, like my friends were always like, I considered my brothers. But I never had that, you know, blood brother sibling bond, and just watching them have that, it's pretty special.
Yeah.
You touched on that at CJ's wedding. Yeah.
Yeah.
Grabbed the mic. You grabbed the microphone at a wedding.
Yeah.
Wanted to say a little speech, so.
Had a few beers. That happens.
Yeah.
Ah, yes.
Sisters, huh?
Yeah, sisters.
You were the middle child.
No, I was the oldest.
Ah, yes. Strong spirits
She's-
lead to loose tongues.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think I embarrassed myself. I don't know.
it was I loved every second of it.
But yeah, no, it was. I always love seeing like my buddies be successful, happy, they're like getting married in love, you know, or
Well, that's part of the service attitude. When
Yeah.
you really appreciate someone's success,
Yeah.
you don't say, damn, that could have been me. No, you just say, wow, good on you. I'm so happy for you.
That was the one thing that when I talked to other people that played baseball is my only thing I can compare it to.
yeah,
That played baseball in college. I went to Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, which I should
You told
have
me that.
taken the opportunity to get my license, but maybe we'll go back and figure it out. That's not my thing. So I was on the ground, but
Nah, you're good. You're good. It's expensive. It's time consuming.
that's what I've heard. So, as I was trying to hit the baseball for 4 years, we had competition, right? You have the internal competition of a team who's going to play. There's only 9 guys playing. I was always battling for time, but like I never personally felt that because I wasn't raised that way or coached that way. But even the teammates, like throughout most of our team, we had that kind of, like you're saying, the service mentality of like, we want our team to do good. We want that individual player to do good, even though he's in my position. Like I should be out there. That we didn't have too much of that. And talking to other guys that played at other schools around, like you get that kind of too much internal competition, and it breaks apart the whole system that you're trying to do. But it's one of that's another reason why catching up with these guys at the wedding or talking to guys on the podcast, just like hearing them tackle their monsters and keep taking steps forward and making their lives better and making their lives better, their families around them, because that's the big next step, is building families. I always say quality people, making more quality people is the goal. And it really is fun to see.
yeah,
Yeah.
You're rooting them on every step of the way.
I love to see people be successful. It's just, yeah, it's joyful for me to see someone achieve a goal or something like that.
And that's why we're here with you. You've done it what I would call the right way. There's no right way, but a right way, and just tried and true and working. And what you just said, I think, is a culmination of living it the right way. Yes, ups and downs, but then realizing it and being able to look back at it and say, this is what I took from it. And I think what you're saying is what I'm going to have to keep trying to work at and better myself at, and be able to spread, be a service to people, right? Be a service to yourself. Make sure you're taken care of, and put your mask on before putting on the one beside you, but then also to spread that. Don't be selfish.
Don't be
Actually, selfish with it.
I can tell you, with 87 years of living, if there was just one thing that you guys took away from that, that's it. Be of service. And everything else will fall in place. Every single thing. Opportunities, friendships. At the end of life, when you tally up your life, you won't look at your bank account. You're going to look at the number of people that you love and the number of people that loved you. And if you're like Elon Musk, who spending $10 million a day cannot even dent his fortune. A day, 10 million a day. He can't even dent it. He has, 7 kids?
I think it's more
With
than that.
about,
I mean,
about 4 different women.
Might be more than that too.
yeah.
What he does not have in his life is love. He does not. He is alone.
Mm-hmm.
And you can look at Bill Gates. Bill Gates blew a long-standing marriage.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what he's got in his life, in the way of love.
Jeff Bezos did recently too.
Yeah, he got married, or
he got remarried, but
with Sanchez. Yeah, and not only that, but the girl he married has a certain resemblance to the wife that he divorced. You know,
it goes back to what you were saying earlier about what's the next best thing I can buy? What's the next best superficial thing I can go? And that's where people being in more of the podcast and watching more to learn and all that stuff is people always say it's lonely at the top. So if it's lonely at that top, why wouldn't you come over here and try this one? Like this way. It's always lonely at the top. Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, the Bill Gates. Yeah, they have what you would call it all. They have it all. But do they?
They don't.
Is it worth anything?
They don't.
It's not the real worth.
I would not swap my life for Elon Musk.
Mm-hmm. Not with this view.
Yeah. I have 17 grandchildren, 11 great-grandchildren. I have 4 living children.
You said 11 great-grandchildren?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I lost the child that was born in Germany, but I have 4 living children. I have a lovely wife, and my wife before that was non-toppable. She was just so good. So my life is filled with love. Any one of that extended family would do their best to pick me up if I fell down. And I can be with any one of them and enjoy every minute of it. So I'm not needing for food and shelter. I'm not needing for health care. I suck at golf, and that's something else.
Me too.
But
good company.
But the point being that I have everything that's essential to being satisfied in life. Absolutely everything. And if someone said, "Hey, here's $50 million. Go ahead and do with it." First of all, I wouldn't know what to do with it. Secondly, it would not actually improve my life. I would probably work hard to find somebody I could help.
Be of service.
Be of service. Yeah. I would have whatever I need, and then whatever is excess, put it to work for someone that has a need.
The talking to my peers, they have a blind urge to fall on a sword for something. And I think the hardest part is finding that something and making that something for yourself. So being of service. I have guys on the extreme side that either joined or didn't join, and maybe they kind of regret it for not joining the military. They're looking for, it's blind, it's vague. They're looking for meaning and purpose and being of service. And these are guys that are of service to the people around them. So I think hearing that from someone like you and just hearing it from more people going through it, you go, okay, I am on the right track. And you get a little bit of that reassurance, because sometimes people don't get that. I mean, how long did you go without reassurance of purpose? It took
a long time.
That's what I'm saying. And I think hearing that gives people that, okay, I'm just weathering the storm, keep going, I'm on the right track. And that extra motivation that we used to get from either the service and having people getting told to us, or people around us, or sports or family or whatever you have, you lose it really abruptly at a certain point in life, which is when you're on your own island and you're trying to figure it out. That's where we're at right now, I feel like, and a lot of other guys are. And again, with the connections you have throughout the world, you get a lot of bad stuff coming through your phone screens or other screens every day and around you. So to be a little bit of that good, and you're going to be blasted all over Instagram, my Instagram. so don't worry about it, but I won't tag you in it or anything. But what I'm going to get is, what I'm going to start getting is people saying, we need more of this. Come interview me and my grandpa. Like I'd love to. I told him Bob Eckstein would be right there. Robert Eckstein would be, and I'd be talking to him about the same stuff, because all the times I used to go over there and cut his grass. So he used to, again, I had to earn it. Here's $20, come cut my grass. And I'd spend like lunch there with him and my grandma. And my brothers did it. And when I left, my brothers did it, and it was cool. A lot of people forget about their grandparents and their parents when they get to a certain age. So we were beneficial to live close to them, and I've used it the most I could to talk to him and get that. I've heard a lot about Stan Musial and stuff like that, playing golf with him. But these kind of talks, because I was in that college mindset, I wasn't thinking outside of like this yet. Real life. I wasn't in real life yet. I was in college, being good at school, being good at baseball, which it's all fine and dandy. But this is the stuff that affects the second half of your life and all of your relevant.
You're absolutely right. And to say, I wanted to bring that out for both of you, because it would have changed my life substantially had I, in my late 30s or early 40s, comprehended that fully. It definitely would have changed my life. There's some things, well, first of all, I'd have been so busy I couldn't handle my practice because everybody would have liked me because I was so helpful and non-critical and so on and so forth. That alone would have put me, I don't know what I would have done with the bigger practice. Mine was good enough. It would have changed how I treat people. I'm not saying that I was a bad guy. I wasn't. I could have been better. I could have been better. I could have been more forgiving. I could have been less critical. I could have been more understanding. I could have not had the confrontations that left hurt feelings. All that could have been avoided had I known that, say, when I turned 40. What a big difference it would have made in my life.
But I would, to put a word on it for conversation's sake, I would call that tenacity, right? The tenacity you see with Elon Musk. So it's way different for what you and Musk have done. He's taken it to extreme and is still doing it. Could you have, with what you know now, if you go back when you started in building your practice, building your family, and building that part of your life, if you had the mindset you do today about it, do you think you still could have built that? Do you think the lack of that tenacity of kind of focusing in on your
No, I could have built it better.
You think so?
Absolutely. I could have built it better
because
I would have had more volunteers. I would have had people volunteering me their help to build the practice, to expand it even if I wanted to perhaps, we did a lot of charity surgery. We never turned anyone away. And we made that a practice. You know, if you have a genuine surgical problem and you can't pay for it, we'll do it.
I love that you called it charity surgery, not pro bono. I love that you called it
law.
I love that you called it charity, though.
Right. So I might very well have been able to set up a volunteer community service made up of my fellow physicians to handle the poorest of the poor. There are a lot of things that's part of giving of oneself, being of service, that I lost the opportunity to do, and I am the lesser for it. Now, I'm fine with who I am, but I could be even more blessed had I known this when I was in my 40s.
They make songs about that. I think Toby Keith had, if I only knew now what I should have known then.
Yeah.
I know, but your last part of the email, when we were emailing, which was fun to do, and he warned me, he said, you're going to get some long emails from my grandpa, and I was all ready for it. I loved it. And I love that you asked me to write it down in an email, because I was like, I haven't had to do this in like an essay email form in a while. But in the last paragraph, which I would love to close on and build off of what we talked about, of being of service, was you and your current hobbies, right? You're researching, it seems like, to more about the life of Jesus and the actual historical records of Jesus. I think that's interesting when how it was put, and you can expand on it, please, is you're saying being of service, and a lot of sermons that you go to on today's Sunday morning would have been Jesus was the ultimate service provider. He gave his life for us. Does that have you made a reconnection with that, or any type of?
Well, what I've done, and to be as brief as I can, what I've done is I've always had doubts. That's what keeps you from being a true believer. You know, if you have the gift of faith, then there are no doubts, because faith ignores facts. Doesn't need facts. It's there. You know it's there. Don't bother me with this stuff. But I didn't have that gift of faith. I had to grow some faith. And what I have found is that the research right now indicates that the universe appeared from nothing. It appeared from complete nothing. It was so dense, such a tight, so gravitational, that time stopped, light couldn't escape, nothing could withstand the gravitational pull of this, and space itself. We know that gravity curves space. I don't know if you guys know that. You probably know that. But the force of gravity will take a straight line of space and actually curve it. Well, space is so curved before the universe was formed that it was down to a speck. Well, you got to say, where was it, and what was it that ignited this speck? And then if you carry out the research further, you find out that certain accommodations had to be made in the universe to permit the Earth to exist and have life on it. For example, one of the largest moons of Saturn, Jupiter, I forget which one of the largest moons has a gravitational pull that tends to deflect meteors away from Earth. Otherwise, you look at the moon, we'd be pitted with meteors. The magnetic fields created at both poles have to be of just the right strength to keep some of the rays from the sun that would fry us, not heat, but radiation type rays that would just destroy any carbon-based form of life. In other words, there's so much fine tuning in our universe for us to even survive that the only legit explanation is rational intelligence. Someone's rational intelligence. And then on the other side, to the carbon-based life, only rational intelligence could have created the DNA code. Now, the digital code we use is 0 and 1. Mm-hmm. The code that's used on DNA is 4. It's based on 4. And the code that codes for everything has no possible chance of occurring naturally, just by an accident.
I love, this is a wild turn, and this is making me excited. Because I haven't talked about this kind of stuff in a long time. But the only question I would have to you at this point would be, rational intelligence is interpreting all this stuff. That's what science is. Science is rational interpretation of the world around us. So usually I go, who's to say that? I think the atheist argument usually is, who's to say that rational intelligence is what we're observing, and that's what we're assuming is on the other side. We're looking in a mirror rather than looking something above rational intelligence that did it. You're probably going down that path, but I just wanted to ask that question as you keep going.
Well, call it intelligent design. Okay, that explains it better than rational intelligence. It is the intellectual and power force of some sort of ability to move the particles of matter and energy to create what appears to be a rational universe that allows us to exist. And it's rational design that moves the atoms that make up the molecule to form a code that allows a cell to duplicate itself. And all of the experiments since the 50s trying to create life they've all failed. No life has been created. They can create weird creatures, but they have to use fragments of already existing life and put them into the mix, and then weird replicating things occur, but they couldn't actually survive. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is, if the concept was that in the early bucket of water and chemicals that was the earth, by chance, some formed molecules and proteins. By chance. Okay, by chance. I mean, wait, almost impossible. By chance, it did.
That amount of chance I like to call faith.
And yeah, you're right. And if I allow that these molecules were made, there's still a component that can't be by chance. Not only the code, the DNA code, that can't be by chance, but the cell wall, the polysaccharide cell wall. You can make chemicals work for you if you put them in a container and stir it up and make them react. But if you pour them out on the table in no container, you may have all of the right chemicals, but they will not work together. A cell wall is required to hold them together. And so to postulate that it's even thinkable that somehow a polysaccharide cell wall just formed on its own and just happened to wrap in there some protein components that led to the first living cell, it's borderline ridiculous. It's totally ridiculous. So if you start with the fact that the universe was created and that life was created, And if you understand that the deity, we don't know what the greater is or who he is or what he is. We don't know. But we know that he, she, it exists. If you understand that, and then start thinking about human history and all that, it will ultimately lead you to some sort of, not necessarily worship, some sort of understanding that you are the product of intelligent design. Your life is the product of intelligent design. This whole earth, the whole environment is the product of intelligent design. And then going from there, then we get the historical instructions from the Old Testament, some of it mythical, some of it real. Historic places, absolutely. I mean, clearly, there are places, there are cities, there are remains that have been uncovered. And then we get the advent of the birth of Christ, and the fact that the Creator was willing to sacrifice Christ as the people were doing with sheep, lambs. They were sacrificing them for God, for religion, for this and that. The Creator was willing to sacrifice the embodiment. Christ, Jesus of Nazareth, is an ensoulment. The Holy Spirit entered a human frame, and the Holy Spirit allowed itself to feel the pain of the crucifixion and the suffering as a token of forgiveness so that we could be free. So, I mean, we could have spent the whole day, talking about religion, but I will say this for sure. There can be no doubt that chance played a role. It did not. Chance played no role on the creation of the universe. Chance played no role in the creation of life. And if you consider for a moment that time is an element that is not a constant. If we were in a rocket approaching the speed of light, our wristwatches would stop, or almost stop, when we hit the speed of light, which we can't, because then we become energy. Mm-hmm. But if just shy of the speed of light, there would be no perceptible motion on our wristwatches. So for the deity, time does not exist. Time exists for us. It does not exist for the deity. And when you talk about the creation, the six-day creation, mm-hmm. A day is a term that we understand. It's a term in time. But if the Creator didn't feel time, was not aware of time because it didn't exist for him, the Creator had 1 billion years, 4 billion years mm-hmm. to create the earth as we know it now. 4 billion years to start life and to build on that. But even then, when you say, well, going back to Darwin, changes occurred and life evolved, but that's not the true story. What we've seen now in 2 different periods of time, a whole new form of life appeared. And there isn't a fossil backward for it. Oh yeah, I can see where this evolved to that. I can see where the human eye evolved. No, you can't. You can't find a fossil that sponsors the first eye from
the human eye is always a huge argument for creation.
Yeah, it is.
Because it's so complex, and like you said, there's a lack of
there's no fossil support. Yeah. It's no record for that. So given that with the introduction of the human era, the early human era, there was also a huge introduction of mammals that came from where? What's the fossil background where these mammals should come from? Well, there isn't.
Yeah. Some fish with legs I saw in a museum one time.
There you go. Yeah. So what it would seem to show is intervention by intelligent design before humans existed on Earth as a participation in creating the ultimate human. And it's easier to comprehend if you realize that for God, time doesn't exist. It does not exist. 1 billion years? What's that? For me, it doesn't exist. I will something to be done, and instantaneously it is done. But for we humans, instantaneously is 3.75 billion years.
Mm-hmm.
But for God, it's nothing.
Yeah. Mine, there's two kind of like wordplay. A lot of people use the wordplay because language played a huge part in the spreading of Christianity or belief in God or deities. And for Christianity, Catholicism, Orthodox to be spread out around the world in many different languages with many different books in different languages, the guys that go down the translation path and try to find the real word of day, like we know it, we grew up with church, it's day and night.
Mm-hmm.
Day and night. That's what and so we think 24 hours because that's how we perceive it. We don't know what day and night was until, it was day for, was it night or day first? It was night first, and he said, let there be light.
Let there be light.
Right? And we associate God with light. And if we're traveling at the speed of light, there's no time. So that's the scientific connection of what I've learned in school when they're trying to teach you Darwinism versus what you learn on Sunday school. There's a marriage there all the time. And, there's many intellectual...
If you just would agree that for the Creator, time never did exist, then a lot of the difficulties with so-called Darwinism and creationism and so on disappear.
Mm-hmm.
If God had 1 billion years to create the first life form, and by the way, he didn't notice, he was taking a cigar break.
Like to think
Sorry.
so.
God,
He likes jokes, I think.
I hope so. I sure hope so.
I'm in trouble too.
Yeah. But if this happened during break, what we would consider a break, and it was nothing for the Creator. I mean,
you could go even more and say God or Creator has a 9 to 5, and creating us was just a hobby. He took a break and he's in his garage workshopping.
You could make that point.
That's a trip. That's like the Men in Black movie. Have you seen the Men in Black movie?
Which one?
The first one where like the galaxy's on a cat collar or whatever.
Oh, and there's
the crazy stuff like that. Or I don't know if you've seen Interstellar, the one with Matthew McConaughey. People love that one because it talks about the time relationship. Like he goes off, they have the technology to travel at the speed of time. 2 minutes for him is 70 years back on Earth, and it's a cool step in the right direction to realize how the space science works. But then not glossing over God. They introduced a like a different dimension to where he was. So
well, there obviously is a different dimension.
But like you said, those are all complex. It's simple just to say there's no time for God, and a lot of that stuff gets solved and
right.
married into a nice simple way of thinking to where it makes a lot of sense.
Let me drop one last bomb on you before we run. And this is a real bomb. There's a guy that graduated from Columbia about 6 years after I did, went to Yale, became a psychiatrist, and well-known psychiatrist, chief of staff and chief of hospitals and at an academic. In fact, until he died, he was chief of psychiatry at Miami. And in the course of trying to treat a young woman who was a lab tech for some terrible fears of water, of choking, and some other fears she had, he finally had to turn to hypnosis because all the things that he thought he had discussed about her mean father and this and that, he said, oh, I got this, and it wasn't working. During the course of hypnosis, he tried to bring her back so she could remember her childhood because there was some event that was really going to be responsible for all this. Well, in the course of, call it regressing her back, she left that childhood and went back into another life. And then she went into another life and other lives. And he recorded this at subsequent sessions. And again, I can, and I will, I've got your email if you're interested. I just talk about message from God. During the course of my searchings about souls, I find this comment by this doctor, Dr. Weiss. And I said, well, let me click on that. And the whole damn book downloads right on my desk. Free. $10.95 if I want to buy it. It downloads free. I said, uh-oh. Are we in the Twilight Zone here? Anyway, I can send that to you.
That'd be nice. Yeah. I wasn't expecting this from you, to be honest with you, because I didn't know. I've had these conversations with other peers. I thought we were just, crazy guys just just a wild thought. But it is very refreshing and it's very fun because I'm tying it in, and what I would tell him if see him soon with a beer would be, you've lived your life, you've given us the wisdom. Now it's our job to keep the world running and to do all the things that you've already done, and now it's your job to think about all these things and help us figure out that next step, and that's how society progresses.
Yeah, I'm trying to help him figure out. That's why I came.
But that's what I'm saying. But
Kane and I have had some discussions about this all the time. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's very important.
This is a nice surprise.
Anyway, bottom line on this guy is that souls exist. They're immortal. When we're born, there's an ensoulment. A soul is given us. One who perhaps has been in 10 different people, maybe 100 different people. One for whom time doesn't exist. When we die, the human flesh container disappears, but the soul comes back and is harvested once again. And the souls are created by our Creator. There are different levels of experience of the souls. They live these lives within us, both to assist us and to perfect themselves so that they can climb ever closer to God. And he went through several different lives that were just amazing, things about which this woman couldn't possibly know. But the kicker was this for him, because he's a psychiatrist, and publishing stuff like that is like, that's the end of my career. Mm-hmm. You don't do that. She told him while under hypnosis that she knows about his family, about his father, who named Abraham, whose real name is Abram, and that he died of heart disease at age 63. And she also knows about his firstborn son that had a reversal of the heart and blood vessels, had cardiac surgery, and died after 27 days. Nobody knows that. Nobody. He doesn't talk about it. Nobody at his hospital knows his dad. Nobody at his hospital knows about his firstborn son. And he said, that was it. Here's his lab tech. Heretofore totally unknown to me. There wasn't a place in the world she can find that. And she tells me exactly this information. And even so, he held this back for 4 years. He said, I was afraid to publish it. They were going to call me a fool.
Mm-hmm.
Fascinating. It's a short read.
And what was his name?
His name is Brian Weiss.
Ryan?
Brian of the B. W-E-I-S-S.
Yes, please send me that.
Yeah. It's, like I say, it's a 6 hour, depends on how much you absorb it. But it doesn't conflict with our belief in Christ and in Christianity. If in fact, when Jesus of Nazareth was born to Mary, he was ensouled with either the Holy Spirit or with one of these superior so-called masters, the henchmen of the Holy Spirit. He would then have performed this role to help us to survive and to free us of our sins.
And some would say to show us how to serve us, give us the purpose of life.
Exactly.
I mean, it feels good. Good answers usually feel good, right? I mean, it fits too perfectly in a puzzle piece.
And you know, this is a disparaged piece of psychiatry, but there are documented cases, many, of 5 and 6 year olds regressed because they have issues. They go to another life and they speak in a language they can't possibly know. So, okay. 5 or 6 year old isn't devious. Mm-hmm. He's not trying to trick the
taunt us, yeah.
Yeah, he's not. And then when he speaks Macedonian, what do you make of that? He speaks ancient Egyptian. What do you make of that?
I didn't take that class in high school.
Yeah. And it's suppressed. It's suppressed because it discomforts me. That's a little bit, the thought that if I'm in soul, who knows where my soul has been? And I can't address it. I can't communicate with my own soul. Some people have been able to with deep, deep mediation, which is a form of self-hypnosis. Some people have claimed to have been able to with psychogenic drugs. But basically, you don't get a chance to talk to your soul. But who knows? But it all fits with what the Bible tells you, that the flesh and bones fall away, and it's the soul that goes to be with God.
Mm-hmm. So if to close it out, because I think
we have really had a session here.
I expected this.
I didn't.
To close it out, I would ask you, just because you hear it asked a lot on a lot of, I'm going to classify you as a great thinker, because I have that ability on this podcast to say you're a great thinker, like all the ones that have the reputations and publications and all that nonsense. But they ask it, so I'm going to ask it, and I'm kind of curious. If you had to, do you put yourself in like a sect, or are you just a independent researcher of the Creator?
It's exactly what I am. I am a human being who has finished his career, who desperately needs to know about our Creator, about the point of it all, about creation, and I, as we all do, appreciate guidance as to how I'm to live my life. And with the time that the Creator gives me, whatever time I have, how can I best serve in some tiny form of thanks for the life I've been given, for all that I have. I have so much, as you can see. I got this guy.
He's pretty good.
I don't know if that's a good thing.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
You got any thoughts to end this with, King? Because we grew up in high school just butting heads on the football field. We didn't really have time to talk about Jesus on the sidelines. But maybe we should have, but...
No, who would? You're not. That's not the time.
No.
I know.
Yeah, no, I mean, I wasn't really, into it. It really took my, I call it my invincibility cloak of my younger age to drop finally. And then to me realizing that, I could die in a car crash tomorrow, or my heart could just decide to stop working.
Is this before or after kids?
This was before.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't have, if I didn't switch my life around, I would not be in the situation that I am right now with my wife and my kids and the relationship I have with my family. And it just kind of took that, if I died, what's the point of all this? If I,
Gosh, I wonder who you sound like.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think it's a family thing. I think that is a true man has that thought at some point, and they should.
Yeah, no, and I took it the wrong way for a little bit. The YOLO way. Well, you only live once. Might as well do
all the superficial things that give me that dopamine hit.
Exactly, and I still felt miserable with myself. And it took me realizing that Christ was the only way for true joy, peace, and happiness. And I mean, the evidence is there. My whole life changed, and my family and my children.
You actually get guidance. You get guidance and an idea that maybe there is some good in me. Maybe I do exist for a purpose. Maybe who knows when it will come to fruition. Just one moment, or a year or two, or who knows.
Mm-hmm.
You ever read any Jordan Peterson?
I haven't read him yet. No, I've done a lot of listening to him though.
Well, you're missing something.
I know.
His last book, We Who Wrestle with God.
That's on my list to buy. So right now I bought a couple books here and there. I'm getting back into reading, and I'm glad I am. I have a very unread library that I got to get through, but he has earmarked books on my.
I had to read it twice. If you ever, he's not as bad when he speaks, but when he writes, it is such a difficult read because he packs so much into some extended sentences, and you can't do an audiobook because you can't comprehend at that speed.
Does he read his audiobooks? Or
yes, and I highly recommend against it.
Yeah,
I bought it. I said, well, I'll read this because I read all his books, and so I said, well, no, you can't work out, you can't walk, you can't do anything without 101% focus on what he's saying, and then you needed to pay to go back and what did he say 2 paragraphs ago or 2 pages ago? I'm a good reader, and I have a fairly high IQ, and it's a slug through there, but it's so meaningful, and it's so rich with knowledge. It's amazing.
But 150 IQs on each side with different voices, that's perspective. Like that's what that is. So that's what I want. I mean, I don't know what, I just threw out a number. That's a high number. But whenever I come across a video of his or I want to listen to him, time disappears for me, because then I'm just like, this is all I can focus on, because you have to lean on every word. Because just like I would assume writing takes, I haven't written a book. Maybe it's on the long list to go if I decide to do that. I don't know how many books you have to read before you can write one, but the amount of concentration and focus you have to put pen to paper, to put your thoughts down, he does that in interviews. So you can see his in the moment solace and his significance that he's putting on the words that are about to come out of his mouth. Not many people do that. I know I don't. Sometimes I just shotgun shell spray words out of my mouth sometimes, and I kind of go, okay, let's think about this first and gather thoughts and then go, because that's another reason for this. Guys like you come on here like, okay, I gotta gather my thoughts and then I have to say thoughts. And that goes back to what you started talking about, which was finding that foundation that tethers you down and then being able to operate on that foundation. And I've said that on a couple of different episodes, and that's what everyone's searching for, the purpose. What is my foundational purpose? So that way I can have a platform to do my service, whatever that service is. And that we skip all those things because we get lost in all the superficial and all the specific things. But from a foundational standpoint, I'm a very fundamental guy sometimes. It's what's your foundation? What are you building your rock on? And
it's all in reverse, because if you're wise enough to identify your foundation, identify your purpose, identify your goals, then everything else falls in order. But if you're kind of part-time checking on your foundation and, gee, I don't have time, I got such and such to do, then you continue floundering through life, as I did. Don't get me wrong. You can flounder intellectually and still be a good doctor, still do surgery. But like I said, if I had built this foundation when I was 40, how it would have changed things for me dramatically. Just dramatically. All right, get your ass out of here.
Thank you again for letting us into your house, letting me into your house. I know he comes over, but and opening up. I know this is not an easy thing to do, but you've been wonderful to talk to. We might have to do this again. So we have all other topics that seems like you're motivated on, and I'm motivated to hear and talk about. So
yeah, you see how this goes. See, by the time you get done cutting it, see what you got, and
we have plenty.
If it works for you, if it works for you, and your acolytes, great.
It's not a burden. All 30 of them.
Listen, I know that it's not burdensome at all. I actually enjoy conversations like this, and Kane and I have had some of them. Mm-hmm. But now we've had a scheduled almost 3-hour conversation.
I know.
And what it does is it clarifies my own thinking, as it did yours, and as it did yours. You hear these things and you contribute, and each time you contribute, it gets some chaff away, mm-hmm. and it sharpens your focus. So conversations like this are of essence.
Yeah, podcasting is a laparoscopic surgery of getting into your relation. Not everyone has your relationship. I don't. Right at my age, I don't have the relationship with either of my grandpas. Right, so being able to share this and letting us into that relationship is very fun, and I think it will be watched by his kids, other people, and me when I edit it again, and I'll look back and watch it too. So
if those two little boys, after Grandpa takes his dirt nap, and grandson says, "Hey, you remember Gigi?" And they're gonna get that blank look on their eye. Okay, here's what Gigi looked like. Here's what Gigi said. Oh yeah, Daddy, I remember something like that. They don't remember anything until they're 4 years old. It goes away.
Yeah.
They're pretty obsessed with you. I think they'll be locked in.
Yeah, no, but that doesn't mean they're going to remember.
Yeah, exactly.
You have no memory until you're verbal.
Mm-hmm.
Once you're verbal, you potentially have memory. I have memory since 12 months. 12 months of age. Yeah, it's like scary sometimes when you're 12 months old, and you can remember being 12 months old.
Yeah, that's.
But typically it's between 3 and 4 you get a memory that will go with you.
Yeah.
And then after that, it's pretty ingrained. Yeah. Well, gentlemen, this has been delightful.
Yes, it's been another episode of Stogies with Bogey.
The weather favored us. Yes. Send me your ultimate podcast when you get done cutting and ripping and stuff.
Of course, do you want it, and as we're done, but do you want it before I post it? Do you want to give it a good watch before I do anything? Or
You know what, Cody, in reviewing, there's a lot of extra stuff that can be cut out, but I didn't say anything that.
No, yeah, you're good, Grandpa. That was everything that you said was.
a lot of people have that, and you're older than all the youngins I deal with, but there's a guy that loves podcast watching, and he was excited to do one with me, and he was like, "Oh, dude, I look so stupid." And he's just he just has that hurdle to get over. But that's part of growing up and being a man. Is like, you are who you are, and you just have to deal with that in life and move on.
Yeah,
you're over that.
Yeah. Oh, like you're by decades. I'm over that. Now, once you're clear about who you are, you figure anytime someone takes a picture, you're going to look like a dork. Okay, that's me. That's dorky.
Who cares?
And so never pictures never suit you, and looking foolish. If you know who you are.
Yeah.
As my college coach used to say, he was a little bit rash. He was like the yell at you for no, to motivate you. It was, hey, you got a single, congrats. There's 1 billion people in China that don't care.
Right. Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I guess.
His dad and my son-in-law, Chris, loved taking pot shots at me. So this or that. They just love taking pot shots. I'm this, or I'm a weenie, or this or that. And I just looked at him. I said, so you're talking to the ex-special forces trooper, private pilot, scuba certified underwater recovery, who, by the way, has an MD and an MBA, and is all satisfied with stuff. You're taking pot shots at me? Have at it. It's good to be me.
Exactly. Yeah.
Don't worry, I'm getting them back.
Are you getting back?
Oh yeah,
Good.
dude.
Yeah, show them the video. Get the watches up.
Yeah.
Show them to subscribe. Help me out. But no, this has been phenomenal. I might like this up and finish it unless you want to actually kick me out.
No, I'm joking.